Star Trek 57, M23, take 2.
Star Trek podcast.
You have a very light touch with people. I really admire that.
You do too. Usually.
Yeah, I think you were right about me feeling pressure. Not about the station, but I mean, don't get me wrong, that was just unbelievably shitty.
But this is something bigger?
Yeah, like, things just don't feel the same way that they used to. Like, I don't know, something's off, or I'm off. I don't know, I was kind of hoping that we could talk about it sometime. Like, talk, like, professionally.
Of course. And whatever it is, we'll figure it out together. Hmm?
Okay, that wasn't so hard. Just a little awkward, but not hard.
You did good.
Thank you. I want to go dig into that data.
All right. Go save the world.
No, I will.
Did you make a burping noise, Jesse?
My tummy made a bubbly noise.
Are you hungry?
No, I'm gassy.
You sure you don't need a little snack?
Good.
You need a little snack in your belly? You sure you don't need a little snack in your belly?
I've had enough food in my belly.
You don't need a little snack in your belly? You sure you don't need a little snack in your belly?
I mean, Jesse, are you sure? I mean, Dan's pretty insistent on asking this question.
I'm not so sure anymore.
Yeah.
All right.
That's what I thought.
Okay, so we can do the podcast thing now.
Let's do the podcast thing.
Let's do the podcast thing in
right
your butt.
now.
In your butt.
Right now.
It's time to do the podcast in your butt. It's in your butt, the podcast. Ooh.
Podcast in your butt.
What is...
What are we gonna do now? How do you top that one?
Well, we could state that the episode number is episode 105. I think.
I think that's.
I never know if you're going to be
105.
I never know if you're going to be talking about the podcast episode or the Star Trek episode.
I'm always talking about the podcast episode.
Well, fine.
But then I'll talk about that the podcast episode 105 will be a discussion concerning the Star Trek Discovery Season 4, Episode 2.
I don't think that...
Do you know what the title is?
Anomaly.
Which is the same title as an Enterprise episode, I think. Which may be the first time they've ever done that.
Whoa, that's crazy. I don't think any podcast lists their episode number every episode.
We don't list it every episode.
Yeah, we do.
No, we do it most episodes.
But you just said I'm always listing the podcast episode.
No, I said when I'm referring to the number, I'm generally always referring to the podcast episode number.
Agree to disagree.
Okay, that's fine. We'll go back and listen to the previous 104, along with the various bonus episodes.
No, I know. Well, okay, fine. I mean, I know we're on 105, but you were saying.
Okay, was it 105, 402. Those are the key numbers. 105, episode 105 of this podcast. 402, which is season 4, episode 02.
Star Trek by the numbers.
Of Star Trek Discovery. If you do like Star Trek in numbers, please go listen to our recently released bonus episode called Star Trek by parentheses the numbers.
Or by numbers.
Yeah, Star Trek by numbers
I would say
or
it's,
by the numbers.
I would say it's Star Trek by parentheses the and parens numbers.
That's what I put.
No, you said...
I titled it that way on all the media.
Oh, that's what you put? So the was in parentheses?
The was in parentheses.
Okay.
To specify that there was some controversy in terms of whether or not it was better to call it Star Trek by numbers or Star Trek by the numbers.
See, when you said it just now, I thought you were putting the parentheses around the and the numbers.
No, I can understand. I do understand how the way I phrased it could lead to that conclusion. Nevertheless, for those interested who haven't heard it yet, go check it out. It is a game show in which Dan quizzes Jesse and I on various bits of trivia across the entire Star Trek universe.
Insane little bits of questions.
But they all associated with
numbers.
Numbers.
It's really
in some
hard.
fashion. So if you like Star Trek, and if you're at least moderately fond of numbers, check it out.
And it's probably, the answers are probably like 80% accurate,
Yeah, that's a whole nother deal. Go
We're
listen
lucky
to it.
that he gave us multiple choice.
Yeah,
sometimes.
you'll enjoy that.
Well,
one.
say I first started with answering the question, then I moved to best answer.
Yeah.
Closest answer, because there's ridiculous questions. Yeah, this is part of the fun.
It's all part of the fun.
Because
But
it's numbers.
nevertheless, that was the bonus episode. This is the actual, real meaty episode,
Full of meat.
in which we will be discussing Anomaly.
Discovery meat.
Full of bean meat.
Anomaly meat.
Okay, so Anomaly.
Coconut meat. They say coconut meat, right?
I mean, sure, some people
Okay.
do. Other people might refer to pulp.
Or flesh.
Yeah, flesh or pulp. Flesh being more analogous with meat, right?
Flesh.
But neither of those things they might be analogous, but they're not anomalous.
Find the halfling.
That's just an example of a non sequitur. So we have analogous, anomalous, and a non sequitur. We package it in real tight here for you.
It's
folks.
somewhat sequitous. Sequentious? Is it somewhat sequentious?
What are you talking about? What is the it?
You said non. You said it's
what is the subject of this sentence?
You said it's a non sequitur. I said it's sequentious.
You were just quoting lines from the Lord of the Rings movie.
Well, at one point they say like man flesh or something, don't they?
Yeah. Okay. See, now I get it. I understand the connection, but those connections were made in your mind and were not externalized to us.
That just means I'm really creative.
Too hermetic. You made it too hermetic.
Hermetic.
Yeah.
Like I'm a hermit.
Yeah, I think that's the same root.
Yeah, in your head.
In my head.
This is the first episode that's like we're centered around an anomaly that in a long time for Discovery. They don't usually do anomaly episodes. They have, but not really last season. The burn is an anomaly, but it's not. There's always the suspicion that somebody caused the burn.
Yes.
It's not just a national. It's not just an anomaly, not a scientific phenomenon.
And who knows?
Space weirdness.
That might turn out to be the case here.
Yeah, I mean,
it could be the case here, but we don't know.
Either it's some intelligent binary black star, or someone's got it on remote control and like zipping the buttons around or something. I mean, the episode's pretty heavy, and Discovery is often pretty heavy. It seems. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have the same sort of adventurous spirit. It's adventurous, but it doesn't have the same adventurous kind of spirit that Star Trek often has.
Because they're like responding to an immediate emergency as opposed to exploring and discovery. The discovery is a part of it, but it's the secondary to the how do we solve this problem.
Even in the face of tragedy, though, Star Trek is somehow usually, and I don't know if it's good or bad, whatever, but like when Kirk's like, Khan, I mean, there's some humor to be drawn from that somehow in this awful scenario, I don't know. It seems, so last season, right, there was the burn.
Last season on Star Trek Discovery.
They did the burn, and they solved that, and then within a year, this binary black hole, which is the anomaly, starts flying around eating everybody. Before that, they were trying
big old Pac-Man.
They were trying to stop
Sinister.
They were trying to stop a supercomputer from pwning the galaxy, right?
Yes,
that was before.
Yeah, that was
Control.
scary.
And so these are 3 seasons in a row. And Tilly was talking about at one point in the episode, she was like, because of the station, which she's really obsessed with for some reason. I don't know why the station was any different than any other kind of bad shit that happens in Star Trek. But like, she was like, it was super shitty. And I was like, yeah, but a lot of shit happens. Why is this one so much worse?
She's gone through a lot of stuff herself.
Yeah, she was like running through the mycelial network at one point, and she like is having trauma about this what happened on the station. But anyway, the point, we can talk about that in a minute. But so in that, Tilly was talking about how we're just a heartbeat in the eyes of the universe, right?
Boom, boom.
But a lot of universally catastrophic shit is happening so close to each other, If we're just a heartbeat in the eyes of the universe, you'd think this shit would be spaced out a little more, Supercomputer taking over, then the burn, they deal with the burn, and immediately there's this black hole eating everything.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's just kind of like pretty heavy. You were talking last week before about how it's, there's a whole idea of like, oh no, the whole universe is at stake, and how that can sometimes.
Yeah, and it's not clear exactly what they're going with here, with the structure of this, gravitational black hole anomaly thing, where they have a simulation, or they've got some physics to sort of guess what they think it is. They think it's a binary black hole, I guess, two black holes orbiting each other, causing these issues. Of course, what we learn in this episode is that's not the case. It's some other thing going on there. We're not entirely sure what yet, and that the thing will move direction, which, as you guys both noted, it indicates, hey, it's not necessarily a random thing. It's not it's not like an eddy in space or something that just happens to be flying in one direction.
Does that render all their data useless, or I guess we don't know yet? But that was their whole data that they got. They were like, the reason we got this data so we could predict this movement. I'm sure they'll find something else useful out of the data.
It's still data.
But still data.
I'm sure it's not useless. It'll help them characterize things.
They were just thinking of it as something that like it's going to do this and this and this, so we can. The data will help us.
It'll just give us
what it's doing, because it's it's physics or whatever. Like,
it'll give us more information. I mean, it may not solve the problem of why it's moving in the direction it is, but it's going to tell them something, presumably. Kind of like when Twister, they threw all those little balls into the tornadoes. But it's pretty interesting. I'm curious. I want to know what's going on with this anomaly.
Well, that's the cool part. Is the mystery is what's going on here, and of course, everybody on the internet with a capital I is discussing different theories and.
Anomalies are more for like TNG and Voyager.
Yeah,
Voyager gets a lot of anomalies on their ride home.
Do.
That's the only way they're going to get home.
But it does offer interesting storytelling opportunities. I would be annoyed if there was if you had a show, and sometimes sometimes Star Trek leaned a little too heavily on that, where there were no character motivated villains or antagonists. Because you don't have to be like a straight up evil villain, but some sort of antagonist. But the natural phenomena as an antagonist is an interesting concept, and part of what makes it interesting is it removes any agency, right? So in theory, that can make the solution easier potentially, but it removes the idea that you're fighting against something that has like agency, and you're dealing with just quote unquote force of nature stuff, which in some ways is scarier, right? It's like this is so powerful. It's the threads of nature
it's actual death
pulling apart, and how we're going to deal with that.
I mean, that shot at the end when it was like zoomed out and it showed this giant ass black hole. That was pretty upsetting.
I was like, because it kind of looks like an eye, and I'm like, is it just going to be a big scary face? It's like, I hope not.
It would be funny if it was.
I hope not.
It was that little dick butt illustration, or the Eye of Sauron or something like that. So it's going to be interesting. One of the theories that's going around that I don't think this is where things are going, but I do think it's interesting enough to mention. I don't know if either of you have come across this in your digital travels, but
digital travels.
Some people have been suggesting that it might be a V'ger from Star Trek: The Motion Picture. V'ger in the future. I don't think that works for a few reasons. One is that I think it would be problematic to have V'ger be an antagonist again.
Why would it be all that? Why would it have all that gravity and shit?
And you could always argue that it was so big to begin with. Maybe it could gain more mass. Yeah, 1,000 years have passed. V'ger got as big as it did over a couple hundred years in Star Trek: The Motion Picture, right? So, but that theory is going around, and I think the main thing is that V'ger was the main other example we have of like a light years across, or maybe even if not light years across, like a massive thing floating through space, and it changed directions, and it immobilized ships as soon as it got close to them, that sort of thing.
Do you think they have Q in their back pocket sometime? Like they don't have any near plans to use Q. In fact, they might never use Q, but do you think they got in their back pocket just in case? Like, or do you think they're
Q's always in the back pocket?
You always got a Q in your back pocket.
You always got a Q in your back pocket.
Because he's popped up on the lower decks, and he's going to be in
Picard season 2. Yeah.
So
I don't think it would be great if they had Q. It might be sort of obnoxious.
Yeah. That's why I say it's not like
he's not needed.
That's why I say maybe it's something if they're desperate they'll throw out there. Yeah, but the anomaly is 5 light years across. So how big?
5?
5. How big was V'ger?
I don't remember off the top of my head, but V'ger was...
V'ger, sorry.
I was like V'ger.
Sorry. I was thinking like Negan on The Walking Dead.
Oh yeah.
Sorry. Or the people that don't eat
Yeah, vegans.
vegans. Yeah.
That's closer to
Veger.
closer to Veger. Yeah.
Bob Veger.
Is that a Bob Seger joke?
Yeah, it sure
V'ger, I don't
Sure
recall the
is.
exact scope of V'ger, except that in the motion picture, V'ger is portrayed as being vast.
It's
Apparently, the physical size of V'ger has been the subject of speculation from the Star Trek the motion picture
the
was
subject of speculation.
from the Star Trek the motion.
has been subject to speculation.
Yes, at the end of 1979. This sentence is poorly put together. It says the physical size of V'ger has been the subject of speculation from the time Star Trek the motion picture was first. Oh no, it wasn't. It's just the
1970.
title is weird.
Okay.
Yeah, the title works
That
weird.
was a long damn time.
But the motion picture, the V'ger energy cloud is given a size measuring 82 AU in diameter. In
Wow.
dialogue
Astronomical
with
units, which is the-
epsilon 4
which is
to
the-
9,
which is
Commander.
the space between Earth and the Sun.
right.
So not that's not light years
smaller
across,
than a
but
light
it's
year.
it's solar system.
It says it's
size.
like 0.001 light years.
Yeah. Well, I guess the long and the short of it.
But I
is-
mean, there's a controversy. Is what it's trying to say is that the people can't
Yeah.
decide.
V'ger ain't that big.
I don't think it's a bad idea, a bad theory, but I kind of don't think it's going to turn out to be V'ger because I'm just I'm at a loss as to what exactly the storyline pins or what. I'm not exactly sure how they would structure that.
I
Not that
wanted
they
to-
couldn't come up with something.
I want it to be someone holding a remote control, like a RC car remote control,
like,
and pressing buttons, going, like that'd be cool.
We're
This is
only
the power
two
of science.
episodes,
The science can control like galaxies.
We're
and
only
shit.
2 episodes into it,
Or
and it's just
giant
been
black
all
holes.
action. There hasn't been a lot of
Well, it's been pretty heavy drama.
yeah.
Some
Well,
drama.
I mean, it's all intense, and there's
It's
there is
intense,
dr-
yes.
there is drama,
Those character moments,
but it's like they dove right into it, and like but we've only seen a little bit. Like it's only been like 2 days or something.
there's a lot of character stuff, but
Like they don't even know what's
but not
going
a lot of moving the mystery forward or the plot forward.
right,
right.
yeah.
And some of that is that's what you get the space to do that in a season long arc. However, it also does feel like you're sort of like, because we get these week to week, it's kind of like what the young kids these days call edging, where you're like, okay, I'm getting a little Star Trek up, but I don't. It's not quite enough. I don't know the resolution to the tail.
I don't know
the
that they
resolution to
call.
the
I
menu.
don't know that that's what they refer to as edging, but
What where the edging,
yeah, I know what.
where you withhold orgasm.
Yeah, I know, but I don't think they refer to other things as edging when you think.
No,
of,
I'm applying that. I'm saying
Okay.
I'm not
you
suggesting.
said as the kids call edging.
Well, I meant to imply that the kids have a term that the young people this term that they've developed.
Isn't that what tantric
popularized.
sex is?
Yeah, but I don't
Similar.
think people called it edging before. If they did, my apologies. But I think it's certainly
Okay.
something that the TikTok crowd has taken and run with in terms of
Alright.
popularizing it Urban Dictionary
Okay.
style. But
Okay.
these are all guesses on my part. I have no citations to back up these presumptions or assertions, and you may feel free to write in it. It's at feedback@isgotstartrek.com to set us straight.
866-477-3727. That's 866-477-2737.
What's that a number for?
I got half of it right.
Rex Kwando.
I think it was WJFK, except it was 86.
Is it a local radio station?
Yeah, but I think I got the last 4 digits wrong. I don't remember. WJFK were the last 4 digits, so whatever that was.
Yeah.
Or I think so. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't really matter.
Book had some dead ass eyes at the beginning
Yeah.
of the episode. He was just like fucking dead.
Understandably
It was pretty
so.
awesome. But I
Well, he's a
thought,
brilliant actor.
and I thought my TV was fucking up at the beginning of the episode when those birds came down.
And it was all flashing
It was
to
all-
black.
Yeah, it was flashing because it's not the first time the flash to black thing has happened, but the way they did
Yes.
that with all the noise flashing to
sound
black,
cuts out and
yeah,
the video cuts out.
I thought some shit was getting fucked up, and that was pretty cool.
uh,
I found that they're really favoring that programmable matter over the flat digital buttons
Yeah.
of Star Trek's of yore. Like
It's the new deal.
He like when he was rewinding his shit while watching the bats
Mm-hmm.
fall, he was like using some weird floaty keys, and they were
And
all
that-
programmable keys, and I like that better. That's the direction we should be going. Oh, I whistled. Sorry. That's the direction we should be going. You're such an asshole.
You just eat some wood, Dave?
Fuck you, man. Now you're the asshole. Thank you for taking that from me.
Jesse was referencing Lady in the Trap
And Robin Hood cartoon.
and the Robin Hood
we
cartoon.
mentioned this, I think, last one. But I think that's the direction.
Robin Hood, Prince of Foxes.
That's the direction we should be moving in terms of buttons. Is programmable matter, floaty,
Yeah,
tactile.
tactile.
Yeah,
Tactile.
not these flat bullshit.
Ripley. The flat, it's too hard to distinguish what's going on in a
but
flat.
back then they thought that would be easier, I guess, because we didn't have them, and then we got them, and we're like, oh shit, people are always fudging those things.
And that's a pod device thing all pops up out of the console, all like.
Those weird,
neat.
those things.
Did you notice that they retrofitted Captain Burnham's captain's chair with the programmable matter as well? So she's got the programmable matter
right?
going
She was
on.
able to make waves with it. She
Yeah.
also has a cone of silence on there now too.
I dug the cone of
that was
silence.
cool.
The Get Smart style cone of
yeah,
silence.
they should have been able to black it out, so you didn't. But that would have fucked up.
It was just what if it was just like a dark cube, like an opaque cube that
You have to
appears
know,
around the
that goes on
captain.
their head.
You have to know what's happening to the captain. You have to at least be
Yeah.
able to see her. or
It's
else
like that
the-
Galaxy, or no, that what was that movie that with the Sandra and the George, and they were in space. It was called Cosmo Galaxy or
Your Gravity.
Gravity. Yeah,
Cosmo Galaxy.
Oh,
yeah. It's
My
like
name is Cosmo Galaxy. Glad to meet you. How can I get you into this
Sandra
vehicle?
and George.
yeah. Apparently,
Sandra Bullock and George Takei.
I guess apparently Interstellar was more realistic, or I don't know what the proper word is.
More based in real science.
yeah, but,
Gravity was based in real bullshit.
Yeah, in drama, and so
But it was entertaining.
Right, and that's the thing is, I was about to say the faces. One complaint was that they wouldn't have a transparent face masks for their spacesuits; they would be covered in gold. But you're not going to have Sandra Bullock and George Clooney in the movie the whole time and cover their faces. So things like that, you kind of got to give them some leeway on, and that's why it's okay
Is
that
that the
Burnham.
movie with the space dust or debris and it messes
Yes.
up their
Yeah,
ship?
yeah.
Okay.
And that's why it's okay that even though Burnham should have had like a dark square cube over her head, just her head, all moving around as she moved her head around. So, it was just
so I
weird.
was imagining some sort of obelisk-looking thing like over her entire station, but
Oh.
you're saying just a black cube
over her head.
appears around surrounding
An
her
opaque
head.
cube, yeah.
Opaque.
And
Does it have to be a cube? Why couldn't it be a sphere?
No, it has to be a cube, and it has to move with her head. It can't stay still. It's like if she looks to the left, it has to turn
How
left.
about like a
and-
dodecahedron?
dodecahedron.
A rhomboid? Is that a shape?
Yeah,
Is a
but,
rhomboid a shape?
but nobody talks about rhomboids.
Rhomboid, man.
Maybe we've reached the stage of society where we can start talking about rhomboids.
Are
a little bit
rhomboids
more.
3D?
I don't know.
I
thought-
think any kind of oid is
It's
is
no.
It's totally possible I just made up this term.
No, a rhomboid is some kind of.
I'm either recollecting
I mean,
or
It's
I'm
two-dimensional.
creating.
No, it's two-dimensional. It's just it's a parallelogram.
What sort of
rhombus.
how about a
rhomb-
tetrarhomboid?
A rhomboid is a parallelogram in which adjacent sides are of unequal lengths.
What
So,
about
yeah,
what
it's
about
like
a what about a rhomboid?
It's like how all rhombosi are parallelograms, but not all parallelograms are rhombosi. Like how all squares are.
It's
or
like- no,
how
no,
all
no.
squares are rectangles, but not all rectangles are.
or like
squares.
how all Romulans are assholes, but not all assholes are Romulans.
Exactly. Now you
Wait,
get
is a
it.
trapezoid a rhombus or not?
No.
No. Okay.
What about a trapezoid is a trapezoid.
Yeah, but it's a parallelogram.
No, a trapezoid's got the things that go the other way.
But it's got at least
in
two.
opposition
at
to
least
each
two.
other.
Oh wait, no, a
that's
trapezoid is that's right. I'm sorry. A rhombus is a trapezoid, but a trapezoid is a rhombus, but a rhombus is not a.
What does this have to do
Yeah.
with Burnham's head?
She could have had a trapezoid.
I haven't heard a sufficient explanation of why it needs to be a cube, but
A rhombus is like a diamond, and a trapezoid
Yeah,
is like a
yeah.
floopy doop parallelogram.
I know
Yeah.
what they are, man.
yeah.
So,
Weirdo.
A floopy doop
We got
parallelogram.
that settled with the help of.
so a rhombus is not
internet
is not
databases.
is not a trapezoid, but a trapezoid is a rhomboid.
Regardless, you want a cube, and you haven't explained that. It's fine if that's your preference. I got no problem with that. I'm fine with a cube as well, or a sphere. Either way, that's not what we got. We're just talking about nonsense here.
Ensign Neville in the house tonight.
What's that about?
Ensign Neville, Lieutenant Aloka, and Commander Nahlas.
Yeah, we're getting to know more names,
Oh, right.
more regular style. They're incorporating supporting
I
cast
said
more.
Ensign Neville instead of Aaron Neville.
Okay. The other thing that I have going on in this episode is we see a lot of pairings. There are a lot of people who are paired up. And it's not that this is necessarily unusual, but it sort of stood out to me this episode.
Tilly and Adira.
Okay. You have
Killing a few people.
you have Tilly and Adira. You have Tilly and
Saru,
Saru,
Tilly, and Dr. Hugh.
and Tilly and Dr. Hugh Culber.
Dr. Culber.
You have Burnham with Saru, and you have Burnham with Book are the two main things. Then you have Book with Stamets. That's a whole pairing off thing where they're like, these are all where they have these long dialogues with each other.
Yeah.
And which I found it all certainly interesting in the component parts. However, I was sort of like with Jesse. It's not. At the end of the episode, I was like, okay, cool. This is now we have another fact about this thing.
Right.
But, and all the stuff I liked, but in the process, I was kind of like, oh, you know what? A lot seemed to have happened, but then like a lot didn't happen.
It was like a couple hours out of their day or something, like the next day after the first episode. Like it's like their time is like, they're dragging it out. Like it's happening like.
I did dig the scene at the beginning where they were having everyone collected talking from the various members of the Federation as well as people from
was one of them a Ferengi? One of them looked like a Ferengi except with bat ears instead of Ferengi ears.
So that's a whole thing.
That's the new Ferengi.
Is that the new Ferengi?
That's a whole thing on the internet where we've actually seen a Ferengi earlier in the first episode during the scene where they're dedicating Starfleet Academy. There's a Ferengi cadet. Who we see briefly, at least from behind, and it looks like a normal Ferengi head. When the preview came out, a recent preview for season 4, and people screen capped this picture of the Ferengi fella, it caused a whole uproar because there was a whole debate between the people who said, oh, this is awesome, we're going to see a Ferengi, and that's a cool update to the Ferengi. And then other people were saying, no, it's a terribly shitty update to the Ferengi. It's horrible, and they ruined my life. And they're shitty and awful. And then an entirely other group of people, which I probably count myself among, who looked at the picture and were like, why are we assuming this is a pure, quote unquote, pure Ferengi? To me, it looks like maybe a Ferengi with some maybe Vulcan or Romulan heritage in there because the ears are a little pointier, maybe some Klingon heritage because the forehead's a little different. So I don't know. I don't know if we're going to learn anything more about this particular character.
But it's not worth getting worked up over just yet, even if at all.
Yeah, exactly.
If it is worth getting worked up about, it's not yet.
But one thing about this scene, and I think a helpful tip in any sort of textual analysis that one might be doing, whether it's a book or a television show or a movie or whatever you're doing, is not only to look at the information that's presented. So that is not only look at the text, but you also have to look at what's not presented, right? Because sometimes things are not presented because they're irrelevant. Other times they're not presented sort of acutely. They're acutely not presented. And one thing that has been acutely not presented in season 3 and thus far in season 4 in Discovery are Klingons.
Right. They haven't talked about Klingons.
We're not seeing a Klingon around this table.
Do you think they feel like they're not happy with
Has anybody even mentioned the Klingon?
I'm not even sure if we've gotten a mention. There might have been something on a map.
Do you think the writers got a lot of shit from people about Klingons, so they don't want to.
They don't Klingon update.
Yeah, so they don't want to think about it anymore, or something like that.
Yeah, it could be as simple as that, but there's still got to be a reason.
Or do you think there's a story and
do the Klingons just not exist anymore?
Yeah, right.
Or
you never know.
Why are they not? It's not because they don't have to be involved to be mentioned even offhandedly as one thing we have to factor into is what those Klingons are going to do. And that hasn't been brought up.
Yeah, the Klingons are always got to think about how the Klingons are going to like.
It's not like, we got to get the Klingons on our side on this one.
Right.
You know who's good with bizarre random gravitational anomalies? Oh, those Klingons. They'll fly right into that thing, take care of it, no problem. Well, problem solved.
You know who likes to sing a song? Klingons.
Yeah. You know who likes to drink blood wine? It's Klingons. It's Klingons. But yeah, so that jumps out at me a little bit. The fact that we have not heard much from the Klingons and continue to not hear much, even though in this case, previously you could say, oh, they never came across them, right? They weren't in their territory or there was no reason.
Never heard of them.
And it's like,
but in this case, it's like, okay, terrible thing happening in the local part of the galaxy. We're pulling everyone together to meet.
And at minimum, with like what kind of fan service or just references to the audience, like for example, this is kind of a tangential example.
This is an example.
But when the Admiral was like, why was Quajon destroyed and the station wasn't? And Stamets is like, well, gravitational waves impact depends on where the object is relative to the source. The closer the object, the greater the damage. That's another one of those things that someone from Starfleet should have known, right? Admiral should have known that. But that wasn't for the Admiral. That was for the audience.
I thought they were. Yeah, I thought they were going to do. I got briefly excited when they started that conversation because on last week's podcast I mentioned that I thought maybe they would play with a gimmick that the power of this gravitational anomaly was proportional to the the density, the amount of gravity, the amount of mass of the object it was interacting with. And
Right, that would make
that's
sense.
why the planet was worse off than a small space station, or even less so with a smaller ship, which is much less affected by it, right?
Yeah.
Because that I thought made sense, but they didn't go that way. They just said the very obvious thing of like, oh yeah, if you shoot a bullet at something, if it
Yeah.
interacts with it, it's like if it hits it dead on, it's gonna hurt more.
Right. And
You should have been in Starfleet.
and it's still exactly, but and it's still like kind of
They wouldn't accept me because I was smoking too much snake leaf.
it's still
As
kind
a
of
teenager.
It's still kind of suspect, right? Because it would still fuck up everything. I mean, it doesn't. This doesn't tell us where the station was relative to Quajon,
Yeah.
because it's 5 light years big. It's gonna fuck up a lot of shit. So like,
It's
how
pretty
far
big,
away
yeah.
could the station possibly be?
Yeah.
Anyways. So that was some kind of just explanation to the audience. And how that relates to the Klingons is you'd think they'd at least reference the Klingons so the audience could know what the fuck is
Yeah,
going on with the Klingons.
exactly.
Like they give all sorts of other sort of clues to the audience. Hey, this is going on, that's going on. We're sort of, breaking the believability of the scene so we can explain some shit to you. Why don't you just fucking mention at least the Klingons are off in another fucking, what's it called, sector or whatever.
Yeah.
The beta quadrant, that's the word I was looking for.
Or at least have a line where Burnham is like goes to the Federation president, is like, oh, by the way, I've been meaning to ask where the Klingons? I haven't seen any Klingons in the Federation.
Yeah, it was kind of a big deal. I dated one
Back
that-
in my day, all they could talk about was Klingon.
And then the Federation president's just like, I don't know, something happened to him, man.
Yeah, right. Not even
And
that.
that's it. And then with no further explanation required after that point. But yeah, so it's this weird interplay. Not weird. I shouldn't say weird. Sounds like I'm being critical. I'm not trying to be critical. It's just there's the behemoth of a
Behemoth.
but whatever anomaly. I was like, I know the name of this episode. This gravitational anomaly.
It's no
Trek behemoth.
micro singularity.
And then there's all the interpersonal connections on board.
The binary singularity.
They are hinting at with the conclusion of this episode, the impression I think we're supposed to get is that there may be some agency, something controlling this anomaly, right?
right.
I'm hoping still
That it's God.
What does God need with an anomaly? Why did he just snap his fingers? I mean, seriously, what does God need with a starship?
I don't know.
I mean, Star Trek V has its problems, but that's a real good question. In my book,
Yeah.
if you're asking me, that's a real good question. Turned out it was an alien. Spoiler.
supposed to do the spoiler before.
Yeah, but it's funnier if you do it after. And then
Yeah.
people are like, oh, I'm ruining you. I'm ruining you.
Rue.
Oh, Rue.
I'm so mad.
It's not just a mother sauce anymore.
I could eat some roux bread with that roux mother sauce.
You mean rye bread?
roux bread?
Roux bread? Rupret?
Rupret. Beyond the Rubicon. Rubicon. People are always talking about the Rubicon
Not always.
when they're talking about some crazy shit.
Chlorotrymaton.
They're what?
Crossing the Rubicon, which is like when Caesar crossed the Rubicon, he couldn't turn back because
Yeah.
crossing the
And
Rubicon.
He also said the die is cast.
Yeah.
Is that like when in Back to the Future Part 3 they passed by the windmill? They crossed the Rubicon at that point
No.
because that was the point of no return.
Oh, yes. Wait, the windmill?
Wasn't that a windmill? Or no, it was like a water tower, wasn't it? It was a water tower.
There's no water.
No, yeah. In Back to the Future Part 3 when they were...
Oh, in part 3.
Yeah, you motherfucker.
You're talking about the one that has ZZ Top in it.
Yeah.
On the train track.
On the train tracks.
The railroad.
Yeah, and then
I
Doc
know
Brown
what- yeah,
had
yeah.
It was a water
model.
tower,
A
yeah.
model.
I got you. It was a water tower. It was definitely not
Yeah.
a fucking windmill.
Well, fuck you. At least I was closer than you.
Anyway, the point I'm getting at is I'm hoping they stick to the idea that this is in fact a natural phenomenon, but it's a more complex natural phenomenon than we might realize. For example, Tilly talks about how it changed direction, right? But that doesn't necessarily require agency, or at least not agency
Could
on
be
the
some
level
crucial
of a conscious
solar
being.
winds.
It could be something as like they're interacting with it, maybe what changed the direction. Maybe it's more purely physical in nature, physics-based, chemistry-based. Maybe it's an animal-like thing that's like, oh, that's interesting. Something poked me over there. I'm going to turn in that direction.
Well, as Tilly would say, the science holds.
Yeah. Well, the reason
That's
is
Tilly talk right there. The science holds.
I know, I like that. I really liked it because it was so concise.
Yeah.
And awesome.
Yeah.
But because the idea of juxtaposing these character dynamics, the drama that's going on between the characters, and a purely natural phenomenon is attractive to me in this context, especially in the context of Discovery more generally, where last season we had to deal with Osira, right? That was her name. She was kind of like the big bad, and then there's Lorca and the Klingons and all that other stuff. It'd be fun. It'd be fun to have some of that character drama go out, and that is where it is somewhat similar to V'ger in the sense that V'ger had you could say a form of consciousness, but it was not. It was not some evil, maniacal person trying to take over the world or try to genocide a race or try to blow up a planet. V'ger was just trying to find his maker. So anyway, that's all I'm getting at is like, I'd be keen on them sticking to it as not something controlled by somebody. I think the gimmick is going to be, it's somehow connected, maybe not directly to Discovery, but to interacting with it.
Some kind of butterfly effect of them going forward in time.
I just got to figure that Michelle Paradise has an overall arc for the season, a thematic conclusion. In other words, some sort of message, right? Some sort of standard Star Trek message, but stretched out over the course of the season. And I'm excited to see where it goes, and I'll be happy wherever it ends up, or I could be made happy wherever it ends up. But my preference right now is I think it makes sense if it's some sort of natural phenomena or playful star child or something like that. And then
Playful star child.
and it's and it's some message about interaction.
That's basically
and
Star Trek's version
communicating.
of God is a playful star child or a Q,
Well, lowercase g.
What if it just
probably.
sends them back?
Star Trek doesn't have God, but that would be its version of a.
It'd be cool if Star Trek introduced like a surfing Jesus.
Yeah,
Like surfing Jesus,
yeah, that would be really cool.
just as a non sequitur type character.
Yeah, I agree.
And he's an ensign because he just doesn't put in the work to get ahead in the ranks because he's constantly on the holodeck practicing surfing.
Yeah.
And he's got so much promise. Commander Riker is like, come on, man. Just get your shit together.
I told you last week that was a really good idea.
And then Jesus is just like, I just got to catch those waves. And
Yeah.
Riker's like, it's a holodeck. You can program the waves at any time.
Patrick just made a hang loose.
Yeah,
it was like a reflex. It's like he didn't even mean to do it. It just happened.
That's what happens when you think about,
Hanging loose.
Cowabunga. Man.
This is the
Cowabunga.
best time. The
In Hawaii.
the resonances of the engine at about 3 p.m. ship time are the best time to go surfing.
What if the anomaly just sends them back to like the time they started in, and then
Maybe it sends them to Klingons, back to the Klingon War.
Well, what was the other thing that they've soft reintroduced here? Did you catch the hint? They've soft reintroduced
the ship.
Yeah. What was elaborate?
The ship picked its own name.
Yeah.
Zora.
Oh,
Jesse
yeah.
knows what's up. Zora.
Yeah, I knew that. That was because there's the smart ship.
Yeah.
That smarty pants ship should have
With all
told
that
them
sphere
sooner.
data.
That smarty pants ship should have told them sooner that their gravity was about to kick back in that one time. Actually, it happened twice when the gravity went away.
I think Zora is a playful little lass.
Yeah, well, that's
Yeah.
weird that you put it like that.
Yeah, not to overtly gender the computer. It's just the impression I get that Zora has sort of selected that.
Oh, did you notice?
Perspective.
Yeah, so like the computer, like the gravitational wave was passing, and the computer was like, "Oh, it's going out now." I could have told you a minute ago. But then, but then when what was worse than that was when Tilly was all like, "Captain, good news. We know when the next disturbance is gonna hit. Bad news." Is it 2 seconds? And like, this is no time for good news, bad news shtick, She pulled a Data. What was that episode where Data was like slowly and unnecessarily providing
Every
this information
episode.
that nobody needs?
Every single
turning around,
episode.
Captain, I think I might have an idea. And in the background, you see a ship like coming right at the view screen.
Yeah.
She should have quickly given that pertinent data and been like, she could have said, we have 5 seconds, and that would have given more time. And how come Smarty Pants Zora didn't come up with some kind of programmable matter seatbelt to keep him in place?
Indeed.
Did you ever think about that?
Yeah, but
Did you ever think about that?
That would go against a 1,000-year tradition of Starfleet not having seatbelts.
We don't need seatbelts. You can't tell us how to Starfleet.
Not where they're going. They don't need them. Speaking of black holes,
Speaking of black
Did I make a
hole.
weird noise?
It was just the whole thing. The whole thing.
The whole thing.
Something was going to come out of that black hole.
Oh, this black hole right here.
Yeah, there was a show called The Black Hole, or a movie. There was a movie called The Black Hole. It was a Disney movie.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
yeah. They went into a black hole.
Yeah.
We've talked about this.
And then there was the Time Tunnel. that
Time Tunnel.
The Time Tunnel came out at the same time as Star Trek TOS. And do you know who starred in the Time Tunnel? James Darren.
That's what I was gonna say.
James Darren, who later went on to star in Deep Space Nine,
And he was in I Dream of Jeannie.
And who did he star as?
He was as I Dream of Jeannie. That Darren, right?
No, he wasn't
No.
Darren in I Dream of Jeannie, but
Bewitched. He was Bewitched, wasn't
was
it?
the
I always get those
holographic-
two mixed up. Isn't that weird?
He was the
Well, they were similar.
He was the holographic lounge singer in Deep Space Nine. And what was his name?
Mr. Hojo.
That's right. He played Mr. Hojo.
Vic something.
Vic Fontaine.
So Jesse's saying Vic Fontaine, but if everyone who really knows
Vic
Star
something.
Trek knows that one little tidbit of on-screen information that his actual real name is Mr. Hojo, which I don't know, is that short for Howard Johnson?
Hojo.
I played a lot of Howard Johnsons.
My
That's
dad
how
actually
I got
used to
that
call,
nickname.
My dad actually used to call that.
Hojo. Yeah, I think Hojo was,
That was what
Howard
our
Johnson.
parents.
Yeah.
That was our parents'
My
vernacular.
dad, my dad would call Howard Johnson Hojos. He would call Montgomery Ward's Monkey Wards.
Monkey Wards, yeah.
And they, for some reason, this was the weirdest one. He'd call McDonald's Mac and Don's Rainbow Room.
That's pretty out there, man.
Yeah.
Because Monkey Words is already, I think some people called it like Monty's.
Monty's. I never heard that.
Yeah.
Mac
But
and Don's Rainbow Room.
That's good. I like that. I'm going to start calling it that.
Yeah, it's pretty badass. But speaking of black holes,
Okay.
Taste the rainbow.
it seems weird that in 900 years they still can't detect black holes directly.
Yes. So this is upsetting a lot of internet people as well.
So I know the 24th century was the golden age of science, but did shit just halt after that,
So here's the thing. We are pretty good today at predicting black holes.
I think the point is it's at
We're
least
detecting.
At least last I checked, I might be because data gets updated all the time.
Yeah, you're damn right he is. Because he's fully functional.
Yeah, Lord.
How do you think he remains fully functional?
So my understanding,
Especially those security updates.
my
those are
understanding
very
is
necessary.
My understanding is either you can't or black holes are just simply not detected directly. You have to detect them indirectly by the shit around them. I don't know if that's been updated in the past
depends
couple
how
years.
semantic you want to be. Technically, I would argue that's incorrect. Black holes tend to give off tons of X-rays, and you could argue that technically the X-rays are outside of the black hole.
I think I remember reading this in a science textbook somewhere, but this, of course, was
It was probably published in Texas in 1958.
well, I mean, it was just like 15 years ago. And this was,
Yeah, exactly.
George,
and they used the old textbook.
This is in George Mason and at George Mason University, and I think there is some truth to that, where it's like you
Black holes can be detected.
You don't look at them; you look at the shit coming off of them or going around them or shit like that.
Sort of, but they
Yeah.
also
And so they call it indirect observation.
Yeah, I the reason I argue with that, and it's a semantic argument, is because mainly what you are observing are the massive amount of X-rays that come off of black holes. Now, that's not true of all black holes, and we're not astrophysicists, so write in and let us know where we're getting it wrong. However, the point I'm making is that the things you see, the quote unquote things you observe, only exist because of their interaction with the black hole, right? So I account it as that system. Like I'm seeing you, that's the black hole. It's like you're detecting a black hole because of that. And the argument people have with this episode is all that not only should continue to apply, but it should apply to an even greater degree, as you were noting that there is 1,000 years of technology where all these other aspects can do it. Because the point is it's like a shadow is not technically there, but you can fucking see it. You can be like, yeah,
Right.
I'm seeing the shadow.
Well, I mean, I think I read this in the same textbook from the same teacher that you had for astronomy, because we both had the astronomy from the same teacher.
Yeah, but I didn't actually absorb and listen to that information. I looked it up on like other sources.
Well, okay, I'm not arguing it's right, but I'm also not saying that it's a little bit, it's from some 1958 place where they don't believe in science or something.
No,
It's
they
not like
believed
that.
in science. They just believed in it wrong.
No, see, that's the thing is I want more evidence of this, because This was only 15 years ago. This was a textbook at George Mason University, which is not a bad school.
No, it's not.
It's not a shit. It's not a great
in
school.
fact, by the way, both Dan and I went to undergraduate at this particular university, and its official slogan is, "quote It's not that bad a school."
No, people always joke that it was like community college plus, but like but Nova's actually a good community college. So
the
anyways,
diploma actually says in Latin, it's not a bad school.
I think you're being overly critical because I just think
I'm not being critical. I'm making the point that this is all irrelevant because the point is that I don't actually agree with the criticisms, and the reason I don't agree with the criticisms of people saying why is it that they can't detect.
I was
black hole
referring to like your.
No, I understand what you're referring to.
The textbook.
I understand, but that's irrelevant to this conversation. In that the critique that a lot of people have of this episode is
you're irrelevant.
Yes, because we're making a separate point here. Some people are critiquing this aspect of the episode.
Wait, so my point is irrelevant, but yours is relevant? Is that what you're saying?
Sort of. I'm getting at that. Not to that conversation. This all started because the idea is that there's this black hole and you were asking why aren't they able to detect it? That seems weird. And that is a criticism that has been levied by quite virulently by some people on the internet. And I think it's a legitimate criticism. My argument would be that it is irrelevant in the sense that Star Trek always has fucking anomalies where it's like they don't show up on the sensors and stuff, right? It doesn't have to make sense because they're trying to tell a story. And so I accept that. I would prefer, however, if they did more effort to actually make it make sense. Maybe they will, but in this serialized storytelling, it's a little tricky because we're here hanging out being like, it's weird that their sensors and stuff couldn't find this. Why not? Because I think if this was TNG or Deep Space Nine, they would have provided some gobbledygook technobabble to explain why.
Totally.
Yeah.
They would have been immediately like, oh, it's got this weird property and just made up some shit about tachyons or something.
I think I just felt attacked when you told me that I've been filled full of
There'd be
like
some
upside down
tachyons.
information.
No, I'm not suggesting that you have. Neither of us know anything what the fuck we're talking about. Okay. I think we agreed on the basic premise that it's odd that future sci-fi people can't find a 5-year wide light year massive insane thing that's bigger than any other black hole that's ever existed, right?
You're right.
So
and when you're right, you're right.
Ultimately,
you're always right.
That's a Spaceballs reference. Ultimately, we don't know yet, but ultimately they might resolve some of these things. But I think we have the same issue with Star Trek Picard Season 1, as well as with some previous Discovery stuff, which is because it's told over a season, there's kind of awesome stuff that can happen as a result of that. But the other problem is that sometimes we have these questions that get resolved later, but like they're not being resolved in the same time locus as when we have the question.
Right.
It leaves you feeling a little like, what is this? What's the deal with this? What am I supposed to be thinking about?
Yeah,
this?
it's weird when you have to sort of ride that line between is this, are they being really clever or did they just not consider this and they fucked up and I'm just going to have to accept that? Am I supposed to expect a reasonable answer or did they just fuck up and I won't know until the end of the season, I guess.
And in other forms of storytelling, they'll want you to just go with some bullshit and be like, don't worry about it. But they will convey
what are you even worried about?
They will convey the don't worry about it through some conceit, whether it's technobabble or some other thing, like the genius example that's always cited in like script writing classes and things is the flux capacitor from Back to the Future.
That's what makes time travel possible.
Yeah, it's like, what's the flux capacitor? It's what makes time travel possible. Boom. None of the rest of the movie has to have any exposition or anything related to time travel. It's not necessary, right? It's that's efficient storytelling. But they're signaling to you, you don't need to worry about this. They haven't signaled that to us yet.
Yeah, that's
so because we're Star Trek nerds, we're worrying about it.
We're worrying
and
about
getting
it.
upset and agitated, and we're going online and getting agitated at other people.
I like the idea we're worried about it. It's like we have anxiety, have trouble getting out of bed.
Some people argue, and I think we've discussed this before on the podcast, but people argue that it's like there's not a problem with doing season-long story arcs or even longer story arcs. A lot of other programs have done that quite successfully. However, maybe it is true that the dumping all the episodes at once, Netflix style, works better for those types of shows. And maybe the more episodic shows, like Lower Decks, for example. I loved waiting a week to see that. I loved like kind of thinking on it and ruminating it on that. But I'm starting to think that, you know, if I'm watching, because when I watch Discovery straight through or Picard straight through, I think I get a little bit more enjoyment out of it, right? Because I'm just like boom, boom, boom. Okay, here's the story.
Yeah. It's better when you can kind of binge on them.
And you know, we have the added complication of doing a podcast about it, so we are already thinking about it, and then we're all like, oh, we got to think about it in a clever enough way to be mildly entertaining to a small number of people.
and it comes out on a Thursday, and like the podcast is on Friday, so you got to find time to like watch it, you know, more than once.
Yeah,
if you want.
Yeah, that's
if
for
you want
sure.
to have a good performance.
Yeah,
That's for true, though.
that is
Sorry
for
about
true.
that noise. Speaking of good performance, I just opened a can
Was it
during the podcast.
Was it a whoop ass? Was it a can of whoop ass? No, it was bubbly.
It's a can of bubble ass.
Bubble ass. Gross.
That is gross.
So I don't know if we want to sort of briefly discuss why, or if we already did, like both Saru and Culber, I think one of them even mentioned it twice, about how Tilly had faced a super traumatizing experience on the station. And then Tilly, and then near the end, Tilly was even like, I know it was super shitty on like that. It was so shitty what happened on the station. That was so shitty. It's like, yeah, some people died. That is really shitty. It was a stressful situation, but I don't see how that's any different than like the season finale of season 2, or, you know, all the shit that's been happening to everyone in Star Trek. Crystalline entity destroying planets. I mean, that was pretty traumatic, but they were just
your season 2 example is perfect, because it's like, okay, you traveled through time and voluntarily disconnected yourself from your family members and friends and people who couldn't come with you.
And you don't seem to be carrying that trauma with you. Not that I expect you to through season, I guess, but it's still just like, it's a little weird.
I think I know where they're. I mean, I don't know if they know where they're going with the story. I guess we got some hints in this episode. I think
They don't know nothing.
There's good and bad about this storyline. I think I agree with the problems in that I think they're trying to set up something and they've set it up weakly. I think the thing they're trying to set up is kind of awesome though. Because at least in this episode, she goes to Culber, and her whole deal is that she's asking for psychological counseling. She's saying, I have endured some trauma and I want some psychological counseling. I think that in this episode, towards the end, they do make it clear. She's like, dude, this predates that. She's like, that was shit, as you were saying, Dan. She's like, that was a shitty situation, but it's not about that. It was about this previous thing. And that's an example. Like in this episode, we're like, why does she have such PSD about this particular event? What is it about that particular event? By the end of the episode, she states, oh, it wasn't about that particular event. It's that for a while she hasn't felt right. And basically she's stating that she's developing either perhaps depression or some sort of serious anxiety disorder seems to be welling up. And now she's reaching out and seeking professional help. And what's really great about that is it's a visual character representation of somebody having that awkward experience of reaching out for help. And that's something a lot of people need to do and don't necessarily have a model to do in their own family or culture. And so this is great in that sense.
You know, if only B'Elanna Torres reached out when she was facing severe depression, she wouldn't turn the safety protocols off the holodeck when she went halo diving or whatever it was called.
Yeah, skydiving from the sky, from like the atmosphere.
Yeah, atmospheric halo diving is something they do in the military. But anyways, Torres didn't have proper.
Exactly.
She wasn't provided proper services, and she seems like she wasn't ever sort of put in a position to know how to handle those emotions. Interestingly, it's funny that Tilly is suddenly all awkward about talking about herself with Culber, like. You know, because when she talks, she does that weird, like, okay,
She's like, go save the world. She's like, I will.
And she's being really awkward about the whole thing, but she's good at talking. Like,
which he points out. He notes, he's like, you're usually pretty okay at dealing with people, but now you have to deal with yourself.
Yeah.
That was the subtext.
She talks about her, like, from the very first episode that she met with Burnham, like, she was talking about herself. Mm-hmm. She was talking about all sorts of shit. Nothing, like, too deep. It was just kind of like, you know, maybe that's what it was. It was kind of superficial stuff she was talking about, but when she actually deals at root of problems, maybe that's why she gets more emotionally reserved, because Tilly isn't historically an emotionally reserved kind of person. But maybe it's just because it's all surface level.
I think what we're supposed to take away from that is that this is meant to be an indicator of the severity of what she's dealing with.
Yeah.
Right. So that's I think what we're meant to understand is, yes, Tilly normally would have no problem chatting about stuff that concerned her, but this is beyond that. So it's caused her to have to overcome this barrier of admitting to herself and to Culber and a couple other people like Saru. There's like hints of it in her conversations with Saru, that something's a little bit off.
They've had this off the wall adventure, you know, where the last season they fly through a wormhole and they go to the future, and
that's what I'm saying. All this crazy shit's happening close together.
And that was on top of all the other stuff.
And just so happens a big ass anomaly hits like a year later.
Like they all need some counseling, and why aren't like more of them like what they should have developed like some substance abuse issues or something like that.
Yeah, really.
Like,
but the thing is that
seriously they should have.
They should be like fighting in the corridors. I don't know, man.
We'll see how well they handle this, but I would like them to make the point that there doesn't need to be a specific triggering event. It can be cumulative without a specific thing going on here, and that's probably what they're going to do.
Bunch of stuff just builds up, man.
Yeah, we'll see how it unfolds. But
speaking of sort of like how all this big shit's happening, you know.
I got big shit happening
after Thanksgiving dinner.
Burnham was all given that speech. She was like, "Today we seek to understand a threat like none our galaxy has faced before." Like, I feel like we've heard this speech before.
No.
Like,
pulling out the old hits.
Well, yeah, really. So it
was just a captain speech.
It was just another fucking captain's. But they always give that sort of thing like we've never faced this before, and we're damn sure won't let it happen again. It's like, what do you mean you won't let it happen again? You won't let a giant anomaly come and fuck your shit up?
Yeah, right.
Or do you mean you're just not gonna like let anyone die ever again from some crazy space shit? Well, like no matter what happens, you obviously can't control these things. I hope you're not implying that. But to think that you can save planets before this happens, I mean, maybe you can do a little better. But
Michael Burnham can save planets, man.
But you can't go on saying like this will never happen again. Like, come on, man. Of course it's gonna happen again.
She needs speechifying lessons from Saru. And maybe, who knows, maybe that'll be a subplot in this season where because Saru is, it's great to have him back as the first officer.
Yeah.
I dig him. He looks good in the uniform. I dig his little extra brooch he has, that council member brooch.
That was cool. I like how Starfleet allows different cultures to wear sort of
accoutrements, unless of course you're Bajoran. You're Bajoran. If you're Ro-Laren, they're gonna make you take that earring off, that sacred earring off. But they'll let Worf, man.
Yeah. Worf's got some kind of thing.
He can wear
He's got that sash that stores knives or whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, okay, most of the time,
Kayshawn gets to wear sash.
Yeah, when they're being consistent, they let the members wear symbols and ranks relevant to their sort of heritage and stuff, which is a cool idea. Except if you're,
I do think it's a cool idea. You know, why not?
Star Trek's cool, man.
You should be loosey-goosey about these things in the future. But he's Saru. I think it's in some ways it's a little awkward because he was mad at Burnham for a long time, and then he was captain for a while, and I fucked that up a little bit. Now Burnham's captain, and she's going to be like, she was his first officer, but now he's going to be her first officer. I think this is actually the ideal setup. I think he's going to be really good in the first officer role. He's already demonstrated himself.
I mean, we knew he couldn't last as captain.
Yeah, but still, even that being the case, it's still, I mean, just sort of a little awkward story-wise. He's still a captain, by the way. He's the rank of captain.
He's the rank of captain, and
it's like Spock and Captain. Well, it was Admiral Kirk on never mind.
It's
Star Trek 2.
Yeah. What I mean to say is not
Star
like
Trek 5. Spock was still a captain. Star Trek 6.
What I mean to say, it's not like he wasn't going to be captain because he wasn't qualified. They were just going to work the story around which they did, because it's about Michael Burnham, you know. And
I do think that it makes sense story wise that Saru, with his personality and experience, especially his recent experience as captain, he was offered a job to get his own ship, and he told them, look, I personally don't feel quite ready yet. Mm-hmm. And while yes, you could argue that some of that is just meta manipulation because you want to keep the crew dynamic a certain way, I do think it makes sense in universe, and I do like them again here. It's representing the idea of you don't always have to take the thing that's offered to you if it's not right for you yet. right? Which I do think is a useful message, because in some cases it's like, here, you can do this. It's like, okay, I'll just do that. And then it ruins your life.
Yeah,
because-
people are obsessed with the idea that they have to keep moving forward,
Yes.
whatever that means. And it's like forward is not such a linear concept.
Exactly.
You know?
Like you can keep moving forward without taking that promotion right now.
Yeah,
If
exactly.
if it's not the right promotion for you. Right.
Exactly.
And I think Saru recognizes that. And he also is he's really helpful here. I like to have that first officer who his advice is always like, oh yeah, just, let them do their thing. He's like that cool parent who's like, oh, I trust them. They'll take care of it.
Yeah.
That was his advice when Burnham was saying she was worried about her decision making because Book is her boyfriend.
But didn't he?
And he's like, oh yeah, no, that's totally understandable.
Didn't he become more like that when his cilia tentacles or whatever
Yes.
fell off?
He got more assertive and grew taller.
But yeah, that was weird. I didn't understand what that thing with Tilly
He
thinking
could
grew
blast
tall,
stuff from his neck.
grew tall. Oh yeah, that was cool.
He's got his spikes.
Forgot about that. Tilly was thinking they all look taller. I wasn't sure what.
It's just he wasn't slouching as much because he has more confidence.
Yeah,
it's
but
as simple as that.
he was still swishing about with his arms. I
Yeah.
like how his arms all swish
but
about.
more swaggery swish.
I noticed, yeah, it was more swaggery swish.
Yeah.
I noticed their uniforms are kind of asymmetrical in the front and back. It's weird.
yeah, the tails of
yeah,
the uniform
on
are-
the-
are
on
the
both
front and
sides.
back tails. Yeah,
And the whole thing where it was like when she called him, I forget what she called him something like some title, and he goes, "Call me Saru." And she goes, "What did she call him, Captain or something, or Mister?"
Mr. Saru.
Well, no, she didn't call him Mister Saru.
or she
She
called him Captain because that's his rank.
Yeah, and then he said, "Call me Saru," and she's like, "How about Mister Saru?" And I didn't. Was that some kind of thing about Spock or something?
I mean, Mr.
Spock?
Spock went by Mr. Spock, but other people have as well.
But it just seems like, oh, just call him Mister. I mean,
Kind of weird too, because I'm pretty sure Spock has at least a few doctorates, and Saru might as well.
he might as well.
But they didn't
He
want to call
might
him,
as well have him.
But they didn't want to call him Dr. Spock because there was that Dr. Spock guy who wrote all those books about how you're supposed to like shove your baby in the snow or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I just thought it was a weird title to let's find a happy medium between Captain and Saru with Mister
Yeah,
Saru. It
it works.
was weird. It was weird.
It's shorter than saying First Officer Saru.
yeah. You call him XO.
Yeah, XO would work.
Yeah.
It's nice and
But you wanted to keep it
concise.
personal with Saru.
Yeah. Say his name over and over again. Yeah.
Did you notice that alien with the big head on the bridge?
not this time.
There was an
Not
alien
this
with it
time.
walking by briefly in the background.
I think I
after,
saw
Is it the
that
one
guy
that's always
before.
there, or is it a new one?
I don't know. I hadn't noticed it before. It was
Does
just
it have like a bunch of eyeballs and shit?
It was when Saru was talking to Tilly and they got on the bridge, and then there was right before the Mr. Saru thing. There was a little alien in the back. Well, not little, just a normal sized alien in the background with a big old head. I don't remember if it had a bunch of eyeballs.
I think I've seen that one before, but
Normal
I
size
didn't
alien with
notice it.
Big old
this
head.
time.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay, that's fine. But yeah, Saru gave him, I thought, good advice. He served his captain very well in this episode. It'll be interesting to see him settle into this role more. It'll also be interesting to see if they have an issue where they come to some sort of conflict in terms of
They
advice. Because thus far he's been helping.
Those
And-
two will come to a conflict at some point, man.
He's been helping her do what she already kind of wants to do, in a sense, right? Like with sending Book on this particular mission, she agrees with Book's logic that he can fly his ship the best, yet at the same time, he's an emotional
best.
wreck, right? Because of this whole thing, as we see evidence of that it does become a problem in this episode. And as captain, she's trying to factor that into it, but she's just having difficulty. And Saru's like, oh yeah, go ahead and send him. It makes sense.
yeah, he's the most qualified.
Yeah. And then, go ahead and let the tether off.
Yeah, they got to get that data. They got to
Yeah.
get that data. That inspirational speech that Burnham gave him in the Cone of Silence, it was essentially just like, it's not your fault. You didn't fail him. We believe in you. We'll help you. That was what she said. And then one part...
It was very well portrayed.
And then one part, Book's like, I failed them. And she goes, no, you didn't. He goes, yes, I did. And she's like, nuh-uh.
Yeah.
And that was that part. And so that was the whole inspiration to get Book to get going again. It was-
I hadn't really thought of it that way until you laid it out like that. You're absolutely right. And it sort of demonstrates the sort of the power of Sonequa Martin Green and like they're just really good actors. That's one thing that's great is that all the actors on this show are really great.
Speaking of Negan from Walking Dead, that she was on Walking Dead.
Who? Oh yeah, Sonequa Martin Green was on Walking Dead. She was indeed. What about this whole emerging subplot that's a bit of a holdover from the last season?
About Gray?
Yes, with Adira and Gray.
So First of all, okay, I mean, what were you going to say?
I was trailing off knowingly, knowing that somebody else would pick up the threads of my thoughts.
Pick up the threads.
Pick up the ethereal threads, like coming out of the Palantir or something. Or like the fountain of with the brain juice.
The brain juice.
In either Harry Potter or in Lord of the Rings.
The Gray's mole.
Pensieve.
The thing with Gray's mole, I don't know if that was just supposed to be throwaway or if that was some kind of statement of some kind, or if they're going to bring it back later. Like I don't think
the mole.
He mentions he's like getting rid of the things that aren't totally his.
Yes.
And so on the one, it's an interesting comparison because on the one hand you have a group of people that say, you should embrace your body no matter what, right? There's that whole thing. But then there's the other thing. And this speaks to a subject I'm not as informed on, but I'm always trying to learn, which is basically like I wonder is it a transgender issue basically?
Yes, I think it's the idea, and I think it goes beyond a transgender issue. I think in contemporary
I guess you're right. It goes beyond it, but maybe it was brought to the forefront more because of transgender.
In contemporary terms, we're going to associate more with the conversation about the rights of transgender people to occupy the bodies that they want to occupy. Mm-hmm. But I think you can extend that beyond to anybody, really. The idea that if there's a mismatch between how you feel and how you want to be, and if there's the opportunity, in this case, it's this idea of transferring Gray's consciousness into a Sung-type android body.
Like Picard.
Spoilers. Yes.
And this one, they actually approach the idea that it's old tech, whereas the other one, it's like 900 years, they still can't detect it's a black hole. But now they're like, this is 800 years old.
Yeah, the Sung-type method.
Right.
But yeah, to me, that was a very clear and pretty nicely done metaphor for the idea of being wouldn't it be great to be able to occupy the body you want? I don't think that's contradicts the idea of being happy with who you are, but there is a tension between that, because the being happy with who you are.
Now, what do you mean who you are? Who you are extends beyond just physically.
Exactly, and that's why I'm saying that that sounds like a nice argument.
But I'm saying, some people say like, "Oh, love your body," specifically, love your body.
And I sort of mean that too. But it all conflates into the idea that it's not a simple issue,
right?
And that you can have a position that appears to be logical, even nice, even beneficent. But if you interrogate it closely, not everyone is going to fall under that category, right? Because there is this idea of, what, if I have the opportunity, if I can change things, I want to be able to do that. And in a sci-fi future, that's the perfect opportunity to explore that kind of idea, where you can fantasize about the technology being available to find a balance between that. Because what we don't see Gray opting for massive changes to the body that will represent him. It's a very specific change, and I think part of that is an assertion of agency over his body. And by demonstrating that he can have the mole removed, it's a small reminder that he has some agency over his body, while at the same time not rejecting his body wholesale.
That's a funny place for a mole.
It is also a funny place for a mole, and it was
good funny moles.
And I'm wondering if that's just like one of those quote unquote TV mole things, because I was like, I don't know, it was just sort of like they made
you could see it.
It was just like it was a big mole. Like nothing wrong with big moles. I know they exist. It was just, I don't know. It was a honking. It was odd. Yeah, it was a little odd. And I think because they didn't, I don't know.
Get that checked out.
I don't think they showed it before, so they were like, I don't know, put it on his hand, I guess.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, well, it was a small moment, but I thought that was kind of a nice moment. It was funny though, Jesse, you were talking about Picard, because Culber was all like, they did it before. It was some Starfleet admiral. Picard was his name. It's like, doesn't everybody know who Picard is? Isn't that like the thing? Is everyone knows who the fuck Picard is?
They're from
1,000 years in the future.
They're from before Picard. Though.
Yeah.
Oh,
he's
you know
from
what?
before Picard. And,
you know what? Though?
And they're in the centuries that are way after.
That's a good point. You got me. I fucked that up.
Yeah,
it's
Jesse totally got you.
He got me.
It's like if you're trying to tell Genghis Khan about Tamerlane or something.
Yeah,
but Genghis Khan didn't travel through time. But still, it's not like they would have immediately. They probably wouldn't have immediately read about Picard. Though.
What about in like Bill and Ted's?
What about in Bill and Ted?
Wasn't Genghis Khan in Bill and Ted's? Was he one of the people?
Oh yeah, he time traveled
I think
then.
so.
Yeah, so he did travel in time.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm just throwing that out there.
You're right. I'm just wrong on this whole. I shouldn't have even brought it up.
No,
fucked up.
You're absolutely right. It's just that
No, I'm
particular
wrong.
analogy.
No, I'm wrong.
It's due to the existence of
I'm
Bill and
telling
Ted.
you, I'm wrong.
I agree with you.
I'll be offended if you. Okay, good. But
I'll be offended if you don't agree that I'm terribly wrong.
It's as far as the whole the body switcheroo thing.
Black hole.
It's crazy, this idea that a memory of a host carried over to another host from its symbiote can be transferred into a real body.
Yeah.
Does that mean all hosts can potentially do this? They did talk about how it wasn't that consistent. They were only able to do it with Picard. But Picard's situation was different. Picard wasn't just a memory in someone's head. Picard was just getting, it was different with Picard. I won't go too much into it.
I don't think that Gray is purely just. I don't think we can reduce Gray to a memory either because of the Trill's symbiont.
Yeah,
situation.
so
It's more analogous to like a computer, like with how you have data and you can take data and put them in different data bodies.
So do you
and the file has like flopped out of the Trill symbiote.
I mean, do you think they really just added some lore to the idea of Trills and symbiotes, or do you think they just
out? They have an easy
Yeah,
out. In
that's
that
what it more-
Adira is human, and since they're human. They've already described how some stuff went a little bit weird with the whole hosting thing.
It just seems like kind of an excuse to get. And I would love to see more Gray. Honestly, I would. I like that character.
Yeah.
So it seems like they have an out, but it doesn't. It seems like the first goal was to get Gray. The character of Gray into the show,
yes.
More. So,
and although Gray wants to jet, because that's sort of the core of this whole situation with Adira, is that Gray's been talking about how won't it be great if I can get in my own body, I can go follow my dream of being a guardian on Trill.
So is this just a means to get
the character off of the?
You think this is just a means to get the character off the show?
Maybe
Since
not,
it's doing the exact opposite.
Maybe not off the show, but the idea of they wanted to have this conceit in the third season where they could play with Adira having to argue with the host that she now holds, but it's also the person she had a relationship with. Right? So that's a great sci-fi story. But now you have that person and you have to do something with that person. Are they always going to live in Adira's head? Are they going to be embodied? We don't know yet.
Well, it's kind of fun, the idea that now everyone's going to be able to interact with Gray.
Yeah.
So that's kind of neat, this before and after. But
and Gray and Adira they're both like supposed to be teenagers or something, right?
Adira
they're all like pretty young.
I think at least 16, maybe they're 17 now. But yes, young.
So they're all just kids. Like the Gray guys, he's like, I get to live again, and he's not going to just stay on some starship.
Yeah, I'm not all blown up and crushed and mangled.
Where's he going to go in the future? I mean, there's not that many places.
He said he wanted to be a guardian.
All over the galaxy.
What is a guardian?
They're the people who hang out in the Trill pools and
the guardian.
Where can I go?
Yeah.
Where can you go in the future? Are you supposed to get on a spaceship and go there?
All right, man.
It's not like there's a bunch of planets you can just go to.
All right, man.
Well, there's one less planet now.
Well, they're having they're struggling a little bit in the future. All right.
Okay.
But
Still
Gray,
more places to go than there are now.
Gray wants to go
damn
to
it.
Trill and be one of the people. He wants to be one of the people that pokes the symbiotes with a stick.
I couldn't remember.
You're gonna shoo them around the pools.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember what a guardian was. Okay, so you don't think that this means that any thought anyone has can be transferred into some kind of physical shell?
Yeah,
this is some kind of magical Trill
that's why they
symbiote
mentioned the
shit.
Picard stuff and said it didn't really work that often. And in the Picard scenario,
Yeah, but the Picard scenario wasn't based on a memory or a thought. Picard was a person.
no, but nobody
I'm
said
saying,
a memory of it.
nobody
Nobody said a memory or a thought. You've introduced this idea. That's incorrect.
No, but that's not necessarily incorrect. That's just your interpretation of it. I'm saying if I imagine
somebody asked
in the future, I'm saying I can imagine a cake. I can imagine a cake, and someone can put together a cake from Dr. Soom's technology, and I can
positronic cake.
Yes, and I can implant my memory into that cake and create a shell of a cake.
Can you still slice it,
You
or
can
does
treat
that
it
fuck
like,
it up?
well, that's however the fucking body's made, man. But like, look, or I could imagine my
Can
old.
you eat it too?
I can imagine all of my old dead cats and put them all into one cat, one physical cat.
Okay.
You should do that.
So, okay.
But you're saying only Trills can do this.
No. I'm not even saying that.
That's what you were saying.
I'm saying that this is not this idea that you've introduced, which
it's all implied to me.
No, you've introduced an idea, you've interpreted. I'm not suggesting.
Okay,
maybe it's a fault of the writing. I didn't take it this way, but my understanding was they were never talking about memories of people. They were talking about in the past when they were referring to previous tries at this with Picard, etc., that it was a human downloading their consciousness into a robot body, not a memory of a human, like that human was doing it. And then they said that the success rate was so low that people just stopped bothering because it was like a 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 100, whatever it was. They didn't specify.
So by that logic, I could imagine my old dead cat.
No.
What makes a cat any different than a human?
No, because it's not Picard's memory of Picard. It was Picard who was transferred into the Picard. They had Picard's brain and transferred his brain into that body.
And what we're saying is, as a corollary, is this a correct word? I don't know.
We'll find out in a moment.
For some reason, Trills are able to hold on to these memories as if they're a human hard drive, as Jesse was kind of saying, actually.
Yes, but I think, again, this is always tricky when we're talking about made-up nonsense.
Well,
but from what we understand about the made-up nonsense, I think we have to understand that the information that is stored in a Trill symbiote, while they are referred to as quote-unquote memories, I think we have to understand them to be something more holistic than, you know, remembering going to Chuck E. Cheese when you were 7. You know what I'm saying?
I'm going to put that memory of Chuck E. Cheese into a body, into a data.
I want you to be able to do that. I'm just suggesting that the very slim, I think it's the slim explanation they gave us to hand wave away the idea that people should just be immortal now. And they're trying to make it so that people aren't immortal because otherwise that fucks up all the storytelling.
Well, they do all sorts of shit with transporters and holodecks and subspace that create new shit that they never follow up on.
Exactly, but then if people can't die, it ruins the way you tell stories.
Well, what about that time when in sci-fi when there was a million universes?
That one time in sci-fi?
That happens in every sci-fi. It happens in every sci-fi where all the dimensions and universes meet up at the same time, like that TNG episode.
Hey! I'm putting out an all-point bulletin to all dimensions and universes. We're meeting at the Quigley's on 5th and
it's Chucky.
Huron.
It's Chucky
at 7 p.m.
Quigley's
tomorrow night.
Quigley Down Under. It's Chuck E. Cheese's. Actually, I think it
is Chuck E. Cheese's because it's possessive because the rat, the pizza place. For those outside of the United States, there was a chain of restaurants.
Still is.
I think it closed down. It went bankrupt. Maybe it didn't close down, but there's a chain of child-themed restaurants.
They got one in Fairfax.
Skee-ball.
That had
Tron
an
video
arcade
games.
and they served pizza and they had robot monstrosities
X-Wing
and it was called Chuck E. Cheese's and it was actually started by, wasn't it one of the guys who started Atari?
Big Show Pizza
like
or Showtime Pizza or something?
I think it was the guy who started Atari
Showbiz
who wanted,
Showbiz.
he wanted to create a chain of restaurants in order to have places to put his arcade games that they were producing.
They always had some old Tron game that ruled.
And then ended up making a lot of money doing that.
Game.
Now, here's the thing. When they decided to make this chain of restaurants, they opted to associate the restaurants with their mascot, which was a giant rat. A horrifying rat. And this was a food restaurant where you had skee ball and arcade games and pizza and you had to deal with this fucking rat. And there would be a dude dressed as a rat walking around being all ratty at you.
Yeah.
And then they had animatronic monstrosities.
The animatronics, if you ever saw
horrifying.
The episode of The Simpsons, which is like one of the first 6-7 seasons, one of them's
in one of the first 7 seasons.
One of those, he goes, "It's your birthday, it's your birthday, it's your birthday. Boy or girl." That was like, "Hello, what is your name?" That's great. You know, and they were terrifying. They were awful. They're awful things for children. You said Huron. Google what was the planet? What's Vulcan called now? Vulcan's called something.
Navarre.
They were at Lake Huron. I kept typing that into Google, and Google was like, "You mean Lake Huron?"
Google sucks.
Google motherfucker.
Google and
they don't know me.
Pro-Canadian nonsense.
Yeah. So okay. Fine, we've got this idea of a host, and it's fine. It's all fine.
As we have suggested before in the past, ultimately, it's what story are you trying to tell? Are you telling a good story? Are the themes interesting? Are they good? Are they socially relevant? you've got all of that in spades here with the Adira and Gray story. Again, we have only part of the story. We don't know where it's going to go. We don't know what the ultimate resolution is going to be, but I am looking forward to seeing more of it throughout the season.
We were you were mentioning, Patrick, actually last week about how it was kind of excessive when Book's ship like left the dock
and did all the splitting apart and coming back together.
Well, they kind of
flamboyantly.
Yeah, well, they kind of sort of, they didn't address that directly, but you can sort of imply something from it when Book at one point in the episode was talking about he can like make it, he was like talking about how he'll make his ships good because he can. Yeah. I don't remember what he was saying exactly, but he was basically saying something to the effect of, I can change the shape of my ship to compensate for torque.
Of course.
And I'll be like, oh, that's clever. Yeah.
It was not necessary the previous week.
Yeah.
This week he's flying into a massive, hitherto never seen gravitational anomaly. And it's like, yes, that's great. Previously, he was just flying out of the ship and into a fairly safe situation.
Well, yeah. I want to be in one of the detachable pieces when it all rearranges so I can be confused.
Remember
like
that song, Detachable Penis?
Yeah.
It's like the doors would lead somewhere else. You'd accidentally walk out the airlock. What was that line Stamets was giving about blow me out an airlock? And he was like, too soon? I can't remember what that was referring to.
I remember the end of the last season, there was a whole thing where Stamets didn't want to leave and they had to...
Oh, that's right.
He was the only one who could fly the spore drive, so they had to like shoot him out against his will.
They put him in a pod and shot him.
Yeah, and he was pissed off at that.
Back to headquarters.
Because...
But which one got shot out?
Stamets did.
So, but then he made the joke about like too soon, but it was about himself. So it's never too soon.
Well, everyone was awkward about it, and I'm glad they mentioned that because after the first episode, people were a little thrown off. Again, I think more than they needed to be because Stamets was getting along with everybody, and at the end of the last season, he was all super pissed off because he felt betrayed by everybody. But again, it's
they
like
kind of addressed that this episode. Though.
Exactly, they do address it this episode, which is good. I wouldn't have cared if they never addressed it, just simply because this. I mean, honestly, it's a TV show. It's Star Trek. How many times have we seen like somebody like Riker go through some horrific torture, and then the next episode he's just back to playing the trombone and being obnoxious.
Playing trombone. How can you be sad and play the trombone? It's impossible.
Captain Picard, of course, had his whole ordeal with the Borg, and they did a better job with it than they usually do because they had that episode Family, where he had to heal a little bit in First Contact and a few other cases.
No!
They referenced...
Picard, blow up the damn ship! No!
The line must be drawn here, no further.
No!
So it's not that they don't address it again, but after the episode Family, he's basically fine. He gets tortured in Chain of Command, and afterwards is basically fine. Yeah. So that's normal for Star Trek. It's normal for storytelling.
I mean, I remember watching the Mythbusters, and I don't think they were exaggerating when they were saying this. One of them. They were going through like torture as one of the sort of myths they were trying to bust. And it was like, it wasn't like serious torture, but they were put in the position and you could stop it at any time. So it was all safe and whatever. But they were saying like it fucked them up.
Yeah. Being an actor can suck pretty bad, especially if you like in this episode, they have all that anti-gravity stuff, which looked really cool, by the way. I thought that they did a good job.
I can't reach my console.
Yeah. That was great. It was great because it was so fucking obvious.
It
was like, what's the situation? I don't fucking know.
It's just,
but they did a lot of wire work here, right? Yeah. I looked at, the behind the scenes, the tons of wire work to do all these anti-grav scenes, and it looked like it was unpleasant, while also kind of being fun. So anyway, good job, production people. Keep up the good work, your production team up there in Toronto, Canada.
Speaking of Book's ship flying around, do you think his ship automatically like separates and goobles around to avoid collisions in the debris field?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I mean, they have a lot of autopilot stuff.
Because he was being really humble, because he was all like, when Stamets was talking to him, and Book was like, oh, shucks, I just drove this thing, and he's like talking as if Stamets did all the work. I bet you Stamets pressed one button and held that shit around and maybe balanced it a little bit. But Book, he flew through all this debris and shit, and he was being all humble about flying. Like, what do you think Stamets actually did? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Complained about stuff.
Well, it was an interesting setup to have Stamets. They got around the idea that it would, of course, be ridiculous to have the only two people who can fly that drive go on the same dangerous mission. Okay, so they got around that by doing the whole holographic, telekinetic connection.
There's a weird part about that I want to mention at some point.
All right. Well, all I was going to comment on that, like, yes, that was a good workaround for that story because they wanted to have those two characters talk. They wanted to have them have that interaction where they're both. It's a little tricky because they're introducing the idea that they haven't talked in like 5 months at the same time that they resolve the issue.
Yeah.
And when it comes to character building stuff, it's like, okay, that's cool, it's great, but that's a little too pat. You haven't let it simmer enough for the audience. It may have been simmering for the characters, but you've introduced this idea in almost the same scene. It's like, oh, you haven't talked to me. You've treated me like shit for 5 months. And then the other guy being like, oh, well, the deal is because you saved people, and I'm sort of embarrassed that I didn't have the power to do
and
that.
it's kind of like telling us how we're supposed to feel. I think I mentioned this, sometimes shows do this, where it's like they didn't show through what you see on the show, like building up to it, this actually happening, this resentment building up. You have no sense that it's building up. They tell the audience outright that it's there. So as the audience, we'll be like, oh, they're telling us this, therefore we should feel this way.
They're telling instead of showing.
Exactly. So
you got to show and tell.
Show and tell.
In media,
in your bedroom, you gotta show and tell in the bedroom. You know, the bedroom. I was to say about what that holographic thing. He shouldn't be able to flail around as the ship gets fucked up. They should have just gone all or nothing. Because they should have just gone nothing. They shouldn't have. How useful is it for him to be all like, whoa, whoa, whoa?
It would have been better if he was just strapped in a chair slightly behind and to the right of Book.
Well, I mean, and he's a hologram. Why does the hologram need to be all fucking getting fucked up? I mean, I know they said they explained, they're like, oh, he's got a super link, but why? Why does he need a super link? How come his hologram could be transmitted, but the data couldn't be transmitted back too? I was wondering about that. Because he was like, the data lives here, but
there's a few things like that in here.
And it seems like he could get whiplash unnecessarily from all this whipping around in there as a hologram. So they could have dialed that back a little bit. But
there are a lot of conceits we have to accept.
And the other thing is, if he can flail around like that and be all connected like that, then why can't Book just pilot the ship as a hologram too? You know, he could have left it, and he didn't need to be there, right?
Maybe there's just the ping. It's too much of a too big.
Maybe
of a ping.
it's too much of a ping. They need they didn't have a strong Ethernet connection.
Yeah, maybe they didn't have high enough FPS.
Yeah, maybe their FPS. They need a variable refresh rate. Is what they need.
I've been informed by folks on the internet that if a game doesn't run at 120 FPS,
it's worthless.
I might as well fucking put a gun in my mouth and blow my fucking brains out. That's my understanding.
Yeah, pretty much. Internet. Until it's 240, and then that matters.
Exactly.
And also he should have left his cat back at Discovery. I mean, I know it's his good luck charm or whatever. Cat back. But
all right. Any other big things about this episode, or should
I don't think so.
Move along to a few odds and ends? Few little odds and ends. We don't have a wormhole this week. We're doing those bonus episodes. So if you want a little bonus wormhole type content, go check out the bonus episodes.
The holiest of holies.
All right, my main odd and end on this episode is a very minor one, but it's the first time I've noticed this, and I feel kind of stupid.
Don't feel like that, Patrick.
But Book's ship has that curved window action.
Yeah,
and I suddenly realized it reminded me of that Nighthawks movie, that Nighthawks painting by Edward Hopper.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and I think I should have realized that early last season, probably. But this maybe they're just accentuating it more this season. But the idea of these characters inside and the darkness outside,
they have more of the views from the outside.
Maybe that's it.
And it sort of it brings attention to the similarities.
But I like that, and I hope they play around with that a little bit more. Especially like the the Nighthawks vibe comes through when you see people, when it's less actiony and it's more about there's two people, whether it's Burnham and Book or Book and Stamets, having a conversation inside, but you start on the outside, so you're sort of voyeuristically intruding on their conversation. So I like a lot of the directorial decisions and the production design of this series.
Did you say especially?
I may have. I kind of hope I didn't, but I may have.
I thought I heard it before.
I didn't. I can guarantee you, I didn't say espresso.
No, you did not.
After this, we should all go for espressos.
And I didn't say very unique. which
Oh
is
man, I never even
something-
thought about that.
Oh man, it just aggravates me because
That's a big coincidence.
and I don't get mad at people. I don't get mad at people when they apply a modifier to unique, but because of indoctrination by my father, who one of the few things he would get angry about, he was very calm. He's a very calm and nice fella. One of the few things he'd get angry about if you add a modifier to the term unique, because you cannot have something can neither be very unique or a little unique. It's not possible. It's a non sequitur. It makes no sense.
Makes no sense.
It makes no sense.
Damn it!
And there have been one or two times where I have said something along the lines of very unique or that's quite unique. That you can't. No, Patrick, you can't do that.
Damn it, boy, you can't say that.
Speaking of Grudge, he was all talking about like I wouldn't do that. Grudge gets freaked out about hologram because she can't smell him.
Yep.
She's gonna mess you up. I don't think Grudge would ever be a mean cat. She's all furry.
How's she gonna mess up a hologram?
You see how furry she is? She's so furry. She would never be a mean cat.
And just lazy. Yeah.
Yeah, she's like one of them furry big like cats with the long hair that are like dogs.
Maine Coon style.
Yeah, right. And just because cats are snuggly, they might kill a bird or something. But you know. Colbert, when Colbert was when Stamets was looking at Colbert's face before he transferred over to Book's face, that was like that shot when you saw Colbert's face, you're like, uh-oh, some kind of first person shit's gonna happen, and then it transferred. It was a cool shot, but then it also reminded me of the TOS episode where Spock was all like, "Whoa!" Wasn't that where the time slowed down or something? Or there was those creatures that, or no, was that there was one thing where like someone was getting knocked out and was looking at Spock, and Spock was all like.
Oh yeah,
face
yeah.
shot. He was like,
yeah.
"Whoa,
Yeah, no,
Captain," or something like that. I can't remember what episode.
No, I know
was.
that. I know the exact one you're talking about.
Yeah. There were exploding consoles as usual, but there was. Have you noticed in these past couple episodes? Maybe it's been in the past seasons too. There's breathing fire poofs as well.
Yeah,
they got more.
Like in the fire swamp with the ROUSs, where it's like
Yeah, exactly. Right, exactly like that.
Or at a Rammstein concert, just
It's like
jets of
a
gas.
geyser of fire.
Right.
Yeah.
Or some sort of Mad Max kind of thing. Were those bird bodies really flying through space, or was that a Booker hallucination?
That wasn't space. That was they were in the atmosphere while he was flying on the way to space.
It was mind space.
No. This happened while him and Stamets were on the way to the.
I understand, and I think the way they portrayed it is meant to be dreamlike and confusing. But when it actually happened, he was flying on the way to space one day.
That's inside baseball right there.
He was on the way to space.
Nobody will get that,
and
nobody should.
And he passed those birds as he was leaving the atmosphere.
Stamets was talking about going through the remains of some planet or system or something, and he was like, "Oops, sorry,
awkward.
Did I do that? Awkward.
Did I bring up the natural genocide of your entire culture?"
Yeah. There was a male voice over the comms that says, "Lieutenant Callahan, please report to engineering," near the end. Who's Lieutenant Callahan? We don't know who that is.
Some dweeb.
Some dweeb.
I'd like to meet this Lieutenant Callahan.
Yeah. I thought it was cute when Saru said, "May we all cultivate such life-saving hobbies." That was fun.
Saru has a history now. He's done that a few times before, where he's called out somebody, coming up with a clever idea, and he makes some comment about how clever they are.
Yeah,
because he's a supportive dude.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He's all tall and gangly, even if he doesn't have his gangly anymore, and their spikes.
Yeah. They did the old
slap you with his big slap hands.
They did the old space surfing trick that they do, and the sci-fi always has some space surfing going on.
Always. That's what I was talking about surfing before. Somebody's real good at surfing. It could be wave surfing, Jesus, or it could be kite surfing. What is that? Is that Lieutenant? Which who was it? Who was as good as the kite surfing?
What was that guy?
Bryce.
Yeah, I think it was Bryce. Yes.
Yeah, Bryce. Lieutenant Commander Bryce, I think they've all been promoted to like Lieutenant Commander.
Most of those,
everyone's a Lieutenant Commander now.
It's a high-ranking bridge. It's a high-ranking bridge.
This is one high-ranking bridge.
They were mostly all lieutenants in that.
No respect. I still get no respect on this high-ranking bridge.
You got two captains.
Not as high-ranking as the Star Trek 6 bridge, where almost everyone's like a captain or a commander.
What was that Boson energy transfer unit that appeared on the thing? Do you remember that? That little that cube?
Yeah, I remember that thing.
That octozoid.
That was the data. That was for data, right? That was for the data to be stored in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or something. I don't know.
Was that programmable matter? It seemed like it appeared.
Everything's programmable matter.
In the future.
In the future, everything is fucking programmable matter.
They could make some badass war suits out of that programmable matter.
I do dig that the whole tractor beam thing, instead of a tractor beam having an actual tether made of programmable matter.
Yeah, and when they let it go, it made that noise of cables going. Yeah.
And then it fizzled out into pop rock sounds.
Yeah, they could have fizzled it out earlier, but they didn't.
Back into the business.
It was a cool effect.
Yeah, I'm sure you want to have it retract a certain degree, because then you get your little bits and pieces back in the ship quicker. Yeah, that's the whole thing. You got to get all your bits and pieces back. Otherwise, you got to go back to relying on one of them old-fashioned energy-based tractor beams. You know what I mean?
Subspace gravitational waves.
All right. Any other odds and ends, or
Nah.
The fuck is a subspace gravitational wave?
We'll find out. We'll find out.
Made up stuff.
So next week, keep tuned to this RSS feed or whatever mechanism you use to subscribe to this podcast.
Deep Space Nine.
Keep a Looney Tune and a merry melody.
Yeah, Looney Tunes and merry melodies. So next week is called Choose to Live. That's the episode name.
You're so happy that you get to know the episode names now?
I am so happy because during Lower Decks and stuff, they never give us the episode names, but they've at least released the first 4 or 5 or something like that ahead of time. So episode 3 of season 4 of Discovery is called Choose to Live. And what does that make you think of, guys? What do you think is going to be involved?
Choose to live. I choose life.
No, there's the choose to live.
I choose life.
Is a term that's come up before in another Star Trek series.
It's like that Rush song. It's like, I will choose free will.
Do you have any?
This guy's too much.
Do you have any?
I will choose free will.
Is there a Radiohead song that would also fit?
No.
Okay.
It would all be like, yeah, that would be the radio.
Choose to Live is going to stop listening here if you don't want spoilers. It's not really a spoiler because the nerds will know.
Choose you.
Choose to Live is associated with the Kawat Malat from Picard.
Right.
So I believe next week there will be some reference or another
Kawat Malat.
to the Kawat Malat. One or more of the Kawat Malat from Star Trek Picard.
I think one's enough.
But 1,000 years in the future, sort of, which will be interesting.
Does that mean it's going to have Burnham's mom?
Probably not.
Okay.
But since it's 1,000 years later, but we'll see.
Well, no, because she's in the Kawat
Well, she's still.
Malat.
Well, yeah, you're right. You're right. She is still in the Kawat Malat. Yeah, I guess maybe, who knows? Maybe it's all about her. We'll find out. So I find that interesting because they're dealing with this anomaly, but hopefully, it can't all be floating around this anomaly. It's got to be dealing with other stuff too.
Does it though?
Well, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what they do. We don't know. But that's what we'll be discussing next week. Keep an eye out for additional bonus content. Definitely go check out the bonus episode. We're talking about the Star Trek and the numbers because that was the bee's knees. That was a good
talking
time.
about Star Trek, Star Trek and the numbers.
And in the meantime, you can find us on Twitter at It's Got Star Trek. Instagram at It's Got Star Trek. Facebook is also like, I don't know, It's Got Star Trek.
It's the cat's pajamas.
YouTube, we're getting all sorts of subscribers and stuff on YouTube and planning on some fun stuff down the line on YouTube. So go ahead and go to YouTube, It's Got Star Trek, and subscribe. And the website is www.itsgotstartrek.com. And that's everything you need to know. That's everything you can possibly need to know.
Are you okay?
He's exhausted all of his information.
There's no more information.
That's it.
You ran out mid-sentence. It's all gone.
It's like Quajon. It's just not there anymore. It's a pile of rubble.
It's just not there
anymore. Man, that's fucked up, man. Now that was too soon. That was way too soon.
Maybe a little bit. All right,
bro.
So stay tuned to this Bat channel, and we'll talk to you.
Star Trek it up
next week. Bye-bye.
All crew report to stations, please. All crew report to stations.
Yes, Lieutenant.
Sorry, just I was sorry, I'm just keep making it more and more weird. I'm just gonna say it. Did you get taller?
Not that I'm aware of.
Oh, okay. I don't know if Kelpians grow later in life but you seem taller.